Everyone, welcome back to another game review. We are going to review another game where I play white, and this was a game, a rapid game, where the attack didn't finish immediately, uh, but continued pressure made the difference. And I want to show you how to keep control and convert these positions without rushing. So let's get started. So we play white pieces here, very standard opening. Now here already my opponent is at a disadvantage because they've essentially blocked out this bishop coming out. Uh, I'm not I'm not very pro this kind of approach, but there are some openings that happen with this. So I bring out my minor pieces, same basic principles: control the center, bring out your minor pieces, get your king to safety, connect your rooks, those things, that all the good stuff. Here my opponent's already brought out his first minor piece, right? I already have two minor pieces out. Now there are different ways to address this. Some people like to just continue on development and not bother about it. Me personally, in this situation, I kind of wanted to ask the bishop, like, what are you doing here? And now my opponent actually went for taking, which is really strange because now I end up with this sort of scholar's mate kind of idea. If you guys know what the scholar's mate is, I'm attacking this pawn, and essentially that's just checkmate. So my opponent has to do something against that. So they play knight to f6, which kind of defends it temporarily. I could try to apply more pressure to that knight to kind of get this win, but it's not going to be easy. So I just continue on and continue my development. Computer doesn't like this move as much because this would have been better if I moved over here and then attack this piece over here. King moves up by one, or king moves here, and then my queen would have come over here, and then there was some forced checkmate. Missed that, but again, we are playing basic principle chess. We're not trying to attack really soon, just patience, right? So bishop comes out. My opponent's trying to castle. I still haven't developed this bishop. I want to bring this bishop out over here and pin the queen, but now because of this bishop, there is no pin over there. So I move my knight forward. And what I'm trying to do here is build initiative. So the initiative is where my opponent has to react to a situation, because if they don't, I'm going to do something about that situation. So my opponent castles, and I just take the bishop. Now I know normally we say, to take is a mistake and it's not the right thing to take so early in the game, but first of all, the bishop is better than a knight. And secondly, the only piece that can take back is the queen. So now that allows me to bring this bishop out and pin this. But I can't pin this right away. If I move this piece out here, it gives my opponent a chance to move around, maybe bring this pawn up here, and then I can't do this. So I push my d5 pawn. I put my pawn to d4. Uh, Computer doesn't like this move as much because, like, you'll see the bars moving back and forth. But this again is initiative, because now my opponent has to make a decision. Do I want to take, or do I want to allow my opponent to take? Regardless, if he allowed me to take, then that would have been some difficult situations, because once they take, my bishop comes out and I castle my king over here, my rook comes here, and now I have this full open file to myself. So here's what my opponent did. My opponent took, and I go ahead and create the pin. Again, computer doesn't like this move as much because I'm putting my bishop at a very unsecure spot, but it is a mistake, it's not a blunder. There was better moves to be made. Knight comes out to protect it. If my opponent played this, they would have won a pawn, because after I take, uh, then my opponent takes back over here and attack my bishop, and then my bishop comes back, and they would have won an extra pawn. So yeah, I missed something where the opponent would have won an extra pawn, and they missed something that they would have won an extra pawn. Uh, I castle my king because now I want to apply pressure down over here. The pin is active, yes, everything's going well. Now my opponent brings their knight out over here. Uh, in this situation, I'm seeing a fork right now, right? So you see the knight is attacking here and here. I need to defend both pieces. The computer thinks a better move would be for me to take here and allow this, because then I take again, and then this rook comes over here, and then maybe either I put my bishop back somewhere over here, or I take this knight and then the rook takes over here. I'll be up a piece over there. It's not very easy to calculate time pressure and all that stuff. So what I did instead was I brought my queen over here again. Not the best move, but it's a move so that I'm actually protecting the bishop. At the same time, I'm putting some pressure on this pawn over here, and that's the key thing right now, is putting pressure towards where the king is. And my opponent plays this with the intention to bring this up. I have protectors over here. This piece is still pinned, so they can't do anything. But I just take that anyways because I want to add another protector defender over here of this square. So now here my opponent has finally done this. I was expecting this to come sooner, quite honestly. And what happens here is what we want to call a fishing pole trap, where I don't actually move my bishop away. Instead, I bring my pawn up. And the computer doesn't like this move already, but here's the idea. If their pawn takes my bishop and I take it back, now my rook is fully looking at this over here. And all I have to do now is move my queen in over here. And let's say, for instance, my opponent brings the knight out over here. I move my queen here. There's very little my opponent can do to stop checkmate over here. So that's the intent of the fishing pole trap. So I don't bring my bishop back. I'm not recommending it. It only works in certain situations. So be very cautious if you are playing this. So my opponent brings their knight back, which is not the worst move, which is a decent move because it actually allows them to protect this a little bit more. Because if I ever brought my queen up over here, these are the two squares where checkmate was possible. Now both those squares are protected. But at this point, I'm kind of feeling a little bit congested. So I'm going to start pushing my pawns up a little bit more because I want to get these knights out of there. They're annoying me, and it's not possible for me to do anything without those knights gone. This piece is protected. If this knight tries to take, I just take back with my bishop. And then I move this up over here and then potentially attack this over here. So I'm kind of getting two attacks over here. Moving on, my opponent brings the pawn up. Not a great move. I just move back. I'm allowing a little bit room for maybe creating a battery of rooks. But here is where my opponent really missed it. Because now what my opponent forgot was that queen was actually guarding this knight. Yes, this pawn is guarding the knight, but look at this. This pawn is actually opening up the king. So by moving this queen, the first thing I should have done was actually take. But instead what I did was I took away the file for the queen. So now my bishop is protecting my rook and the queen's under attack. Queen has to do something. They have to react. They have to go. The only safe square for the queen really to go, I think, was over here. That's the only safe square for the queen to go. Because except, oh, sorry, here and here. That was the two safe squares. So my opponent chose the wrong square. That's the blunder that happened in this game. But again, continued pressure. So I take, opponent takes back. Now I bring my castle out. My intention is move my castle here, put more pressure, pin this piece, and games win. My opponent takes. My opponent thinks that because their knight is here and they've created a fork for these two rooks, that I cannot do anything about it. But what my opponent forgot is checks, captures, threats. And this, my friends, is where a lot of people lose the game because they forget to see the checks. And here is the check that actually comes in. The computer wanted me to bring the queen in for the check. I'm taking the rook in. Check. My opponent moves their king. I move my rook over. I'm asking the knight, what are you going to do now? Knight moves back. Second blunder by my opponent. And now this is basically just game over because once I bring my queen in over here for a check, I have one, I have two, I have three pieces attacking over here, not including this one. I'm not taking that knight because this will just open up their rook and I don't want to do that. But look at how many pieces I have attacking in the same direction. That's the pressure that I was talking about. That's the pressure that we should be doing for winning games and converting games. And at this point, my opponent has only a few moves left. And this is where my opponent resigned. This is basically a forced checkmate in a few moves. Like whatever my opponent did, even if my opponent brought this over here, I would just move over here with check, and that was it, right? If my opponent, let's say for instance, tried something else, tried to move their knight over here, still this goes with check, this comes over here, and then my queen goes in with checkmate. Like there was no easy way out of this. I don't think there was any way out of this. This was just a forced checkmate. So there you have it, folks. This is how you can win with the right kind of pressure, the pressure on pinned pieces, force the initiative with the opponents, and don't be subject to passive moves. That's the best thing that happened in this game. Is it was all moves with some initiative, with a plan. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a great plan. Sometimes it can just be a plan. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys.